truth seekers. The month is a very big topic in the Creator's Calendar discussion, and I wanted to try and help unpack it a little for you tonight per my current understanding. And so, if you're watching this video, you've probably figured out by now that the Gregorian months are just a bunch of man-made months that just kind of calendar months is what they are. I mean, sort of solar maybe, but they are calendar months. It's essentially independent of the luminaries, and it's something that man has kind of come up with, and it just runs sort of close to what the luminaries are doing, but nonetheless kind of independent. But then you've probably heard of lunar months, and maybe you've heard of solar months, and possibly stellar months, and then back to calendar months. If you're into some of these calendars that are independent from the witness of the heavenly luminaries. But we're going to talk about the month a little bit tonight, and I'm going to start out by talking about the incredible translational bias that is occurring in most Bible translations, and that is for the phrase "in the new moon." So when I searched the new moon, I guess there's 22 verses that come up, but I feel like there must be more than that. But anyway, if you haven't got onto this yet, there is a major translational bias going on here. And whenever I see major translational biases, that's a yellow flag to me, and an indicator to me to dig deeper, and to be cautious of traditions of men, and to really dig to find the truth. So the thing is with this translation in the new moons, see, here's the word for moon, and I guess moons, and here's the word for months in Hebrew. And as you can probably tell, they have nothing in common. They are two completely different words. So if the translation truly should have had the word moon in it, then you would see one of these words in the original language. But when you check, you don't. You see this word. So all these places, except for maybe one where it's like talking about something specific. Possibly I've heard mention of that, but 99.5% of the times that you read that phrase "in the new moons," that's mistranslated, and it should be saying something like "in the new months." Because if you look, let's go here. So I have, where are we? So I clicked on 20, 23, 20. I guess that's Kodesh. Sounds like Kodesh. But anyway, as you can see there's the root word of Kodesh, and that root word is what you see in here, and it's not what you see here. So that, if you've woken up to that, I think you're on the right track. If not, I admonish you to look into that more and pray about it. But there's a lot more to look into as you start to discover truth, dig deeper into that topic, like the accounts in the Kings about like the different months of the year, and the different services of the priests and people who were serving the king or guarding the king. There were only 12 cycles of priests, or 12 cycles of guards. There weren't 13 for that, for the extra 13 intercalated lunar month that happens like every 3 years or something. And the tree of life in the Book of Revelation, it had 12 fruits for the 12 months of the year, not 13. So I mean, as you continue to dig deeper, I think you will learn to look at some of the other possibilities for a month timepiece. And to kind of jump right into Enoch 1, I got into Enoch because I was just reading my Bible over and over and over again, listening to my audio Bible, and I would hear quotes and references of these other books that didn't make it into the canon, and Enoch was one of them, and it's directly quoted from. And I know 119 Ministries has a huge video out. got like 200,000 views in like 1 year. It might be one of their biggest videos, I think, and it's the one testing the Book of Enoch, and they're essentially trying to cut it down. There's one moment, I did a rebuttal to that video, if you check my channel. It's like response to 119's Book of Enoch or whatever, but even in their video, thankfully, they mentioned, one of their sources said, you know, the Book of Enoch is probably a compilation of, you know, different people claiming to be Enoch or whatever. It's not really genuine or whatever. But then they say, possibly with the exception of the luminary section. So I was thankful to hear them say that, and I would think obviously they would have to concede, I mean, the part that is quoted from directly in the Book of Jude, which made it into the canon. I forgot what they said about that, but I mean, you know, it's the same thing that you see in, you know, in many of the messianic prophecies that you read about in the New Testament. Yeah, they're a repeat of what you saw a scripture in the Old Testament, like not a bone of his shall be broken. But sometimes they're said a little differently. They're not exactly word for word, and you see that with all the messianic prophecies, and you know, that's just because of the different translations that have been cycled through, you know, Greek to who knows what. I mean, but they're, you know, even the messianic ones, the majority of the messianic ones are not exactly word for word because of the translation. So I've just heard people try and say that Enoch, you know, when it's quoted in the Book of Jude, that it's slightly different, but no, it's pretty much exactly word for. It's as close as any of the other messianic prophecies are, pretty much. But anyway, so if you read the luminary section of the Book of Enoch, it starts out by saying, you know, the angel or the book of the course of the head of the luminaries according to their classes, dominions, their seasons, according to their names, places of origin, and according to their months. And the word months is plural, showing us that these luminaries, and Enoch is going to talk about the sun, moon, and stars, they all have different month cycles. So yes, the the moon does have a couple different cycles that I'm not going to really dwell on too much in this video for the reasons already mentioned. We're going to kind of from here start to explore the solar and stellar, and I guess back to the intercalated calendar months. But the so if you continue reading the first chapter of Enoch in very long and meticulous detail, Enoch describes how the sun is, you know, starting in the fourth portal, the fourth great portal. I don't see where that is. Oh, there it is, great portal. But I mean, essentially, it explains that the sun is cycling through these portals in the heavens, and the amount of time that the sun spends in each portal it's a month. See, it's calling it the first month, and it's the amount of time that the sun spends in 30 mornings in succession, accurately setting in the fourth portal. So it's the amount of time that the sun spends in each of the portals. You know, it is very, very position based, and so I just wanted to take another moment to dwell on that for a minute and jump to another chapter in Enoch. This is near the end of Enoch. And this is an important verse, again, to confirm the importance of a solar month. And that is because, you know, the year that Enoch is describing here is a year that is dependent. It's divided in 4 portions. Guess what those 4 portions are? The seasons. The 4 solar seasons. What is being described in Enoch is a solar year. It has solar seasons and it has solar months. And all of these months, seasons, years are based upon the exact and precise position of the sun in the heavens. And like I said, Enoch in very meticulous detail described where the sun was supposed to be for this month, for this month, for this month, and for this season, and that season. And So, but this verse is important, and I just want to read it for a second. It says, "Blessed are all the righteous, blessed are those who walk in the way of righteousness, and sin not as the sinners in the reckoning of all their days, in which the sun traverses the heaven, entering into and departing from the portals for 30 days, with the heads of thousands and the orders of the stars, together with the four which are intercalated, which divide the four portions of the year." So the year is comprised of four portions and comprised of 12 solar seasons. 4 solar seasons, 12 solar seasons. Now this is important because, and I think, I think there might be something to, I'll just mention it briefly before getting deeper into the solar seasons, but I think also the stellar kind of go hand in hand with the solar months. There's kind of a real amazing design with the stars, and if you just watch the apparent movement of the sun and the stars in the heavens over the course of the year, the apparent movement that you see, the stars are spinning ever so slightly faster than the sun, the apparent movement that you see. And so the result of that is that the sun is shifting into different constellations over the course of the years. And I mean, it is I think probably a good indicator, if the seasons aren't indicator enough, but it's a good indicator to let you know, kind of like, what constellation you're looking at. Like you can kind of tell what time of year it is, because different constellations are going to appear on the horizons at different times of year and in different solar months. Like the sun will be in different constellations for the different months. But that's kind of maybe a more in-depth discussion for another time, but right now we're going to focus on the solar seasons and the solar months, because that is what Enoch is describing to govern and create this thing called a year. It's the north-south shifting of the sun that he described in meticulous detail here, of the sun entering and departing from the portals, creating solar months and creating solar seasons. And this summary is saying that the year is comprised of four portions, the 4 solar seasons, and the months they go hand in hand. They literally, the year, the solar year, the solar seasons, and the solar months fit one right on top of the other like fingers in a glove. And so if I can get my Excel spreadsheet to open here. So I just want to take a moment to try and explain what Enoch is describing for my current understanding. So when you look up into the heavens, there is an imaginary line up in the heavens called the celestial equator. There are a couple important points you have to know about in the heavens. It helps you to understand what's going on in the heavens, and we'll tie that back to Enoch in a minute. But the solar so the celestial equator is an important point that you have to understand where it is in the heavens. It's essentially, how the equator on Earth is the middle point between north and south. Well, the celestial equator is the middle point of heaven between north and south. Like, 2 other important points that you may have heard of is the celestial poles, like the north, what do they call it? The North Star. It is near one of the celestial poles, and I think there's like the Southern Cross or something might be near the southern celestial pole. But anyway, so there is something called the celestial equator, and that's right in the middle of north and south, just like the equator on Earth is right in the middle, and it's the middle of heaven. And it just for reference, so you understand, it sits, according to my current understanding and according to Stellarium, it looks like the celestial equator sits right above Orion's belt. And I guess it might help to actually look at some data I have been collecting, if my computer don't freeze on me. But essentially, so the middle, my computer's frozen here. So here's those same portals, 4, 5, 6. So you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Enoch talks about the 4th portals, and I just made a video on the 4th great portal, why he calls it the great portal, but it's essentially, he calls this one the great portal because the sun is moving faster when it is near the celestial equator. It appears to shift faster in the north-south direction than it does when it's way out here at the extreme, and so it covers more ground, and that's why this portal is bigger, because Enoch tells us that the solar months are all equal, so in the same amount of time, the sun covers this amount of ground, this amount of ground, and this amount of ground in the same amount of time, but it's just, it appears to be moving faster. And this is the north-south shifting of the sun, and so that's what this is here. I'm giving you a demonstration, and what I've done here is I've taken a picture of a patch of sky. I have pictures of stars here, I have pictures of the moon, and I have pictures of the sun that I took with a solar filter. And so that's why everything's black and they're just kind of laid one on top of the other. But what I did was, this is a screen capture from the software Stellarium. And you have an option to pop some grid lines on in Stellarium, and this is one of the grid lines you'll see. And if you can't see it in this picture, but if you go open Stellarium and look at it, you'll see there's a number on this grid line, and it's like azimuth 0 or whatever they call it, but it's 0, and this is the celestial equator, in theory, according to Stellarium, and you can see it's right above Orion's belt. So what I did was I took pictures of Orion's belt at night. So that's what these 3 stars are here, and that's what these 3 are here, and these 3 here, and these 3 here, and these 3 here. So I took like 5 pictures of Orion as it coasted across the sky at night. So I took one picture here, and then 2 hours later I took this one, an hour later I took this one, and so on and so forth as it moved across the sky. And what that gave me was a reference line for the celestial equator, so I could ballpark where the celestial equator was. But if you take a moment to pause the video and look at some of these dates of the sun with proximity to the celestial equator, you'll notice, yes, you see this compass here, so the sun is obviously moving from east to west over the course of every day. It's kind of following a trajectory generally from this side down to here. But with respect to the celestial equator, every day and every solar month it is also shifting north and south. And in North America, I'm here in West Virginia, when the sun hits its northernmost position, that's when we have summer. The first day of summer is when the sun starts to return. It's when it's like closest overhead, and the sun's just cooking us and we get summer. And then when the sun goes way down here somewhere, that is where we have winter, because the sun's far away and we get cold. I only started collecting this spring, and I was watching the sun get closer and closer to the celestial equator. And then I snapped a picture of the sun recently, well, this past summer, when it was out near the longest day of the year. And then I snapped a couple more pictures as it's returning to the celestial equator. So here's one, and this one I took just like yesterday. And so it's getting closer and closer to the celestial equator. But my point is, these are the portals that Enoch talks about. And it's the sun obviously moving east to west, but in addition, it does this slight and quite amazing shift. As you look up the apparent movement of the sun up in the heavens, and it has this north to south shift. And that is what gives us the seasons. When the sun is in my location, when it's overhead, farthest north, we'll get summer, and when it's farthest south, we'll get winter. And somewhere right in the middle is where the seasons of spring and summer transition. But anyway, so this view is a little more cleaned up. But I just wanted to talk again about the importance of a solar month and how that works, and how Enoch described it. So Enoch said the sun, it began in the 4th great gate. And I have to read to see if he said it was like, it comes forth, or it accurately sets. and he rises in the first month in the fourth great portal. So you might want to pay a little closer attention to try and look for the key word that's going to help us understand exactly where the sun is. But my current understanding is that Enoch described the seasons as being equal and the solar months as being equal. So that means, it's moving faster in here, and I've measured that with a sundial. And again, I recommend checking out the video I just posted that's talking about, like, why does Enoch call it the fourth great portal? But it does move faster in here, and that's why this portal is greater. But then it moves slower and slower yet. But it takes the same amount of time to move through these portals. 30 days in this one, 30 days in this one, 30 days in this one. All of them. And I guess there is an extra seasonal day in some of these portals, but Enoch describes exactly where the sun is and how much time it's spending in each portal. But there are little subtle things that you need to pay attention to, like exactly where is the sun. So like this line right between portals 3 and 4, this line is the celestial equator line. I had to turn my picture on its side like this so that I could overlay it here, but you can see it's following Orion's belt. It's following that celestial equator right between 3 and 4. So that Orion's belt is coasting along this middle line, the celestial equator. The top belt star in Orion's belt is right below that. So this green is for the season of spring, and then as it comes back down from the extreme position up here, this is in my West Virginia, as it comes down, this is the season of summer, and then when it crosses over the celestial equator, this is the season of fall for these 3 portals. And then when it comes back up this way, this is the season of winter, and then it crosses back over the celestial equator in the spring, and it enters into the fourth great portal, and it starts progressing up this way for the season of spring. But the point is, Enoch describes these things as equal, and even from a logical and a scientific standpoint, modern science agrees. Generally there are little subtleties, but when the sun is, in my location, when the sun is up here in portal 6, like, we're having summer. It's evident we're having summer, and when the sun is down here, it is evident we're having winter, and it's right around this middle line that we're transitioning from spring and fall, or to fall. And so so we know that the seasons are based upon this north-south movement, and we know that Enoch is telling us, the year is divided into 4 portions, and he's telling us about the solar months and how they're all equal, except for the 4 months that have one extra seasonal day that kind of end the season. But the point is, we know that the seasons begin, even modern science understands it begins when the sun hits these extreme positions up here. So it makes logical sense that the seasons of spring and fall are also, like, if this is the extreme position where you see summer, and down here is the extreme position where you see winter, then it is right in the middle where you see the other seasonal transition. It is exactly here in the middle somewhere. And so, modern science, when you Google the question, like, when is the fall equinox, or when is the spring equinox, or whatever, you got to be careful about what they say, because their data from like timeanddate.com is sometimes they are measuring the sun's proximity with respect to the celestial equator, but sometimes I have several videos on determining the first day of the year and how these different websites and stuff do it. But you have to be careful, because there are a few things going on, but one of them is like the difference between the sun touching the celestial equator and the difference between the sun being bisected by the celestial equator. and I guess my my current understanding, there are several ways to confirm the seasonal transition, but one is I'm experimenting with this data and I need to fine tune it because this was the first time I ever did it, but I think this does give a pretty good ballpark of when the sun is making that seasonal transition near the celestial equator. But there's another method called the straight line method that seems to be, I'll be trying that one again. I'm still testing that, but seems to be another way of doing it. But again, the question is like the difference between this when it touches and the difference when it is bisected, and that's kind of tricky. It's not really so tricky when the sun hits its extreme position up here, because according to Enoch, like the sun is going to keep progressing, and when it hits its most extreme point, that is the last day of the season of spring. And then when it starts to return, the day it returns is the first day of summer. Likewise, it's going to be going down to this extreme down here, extreme, and when it hits the most extreme southern position, the day it starts to return from that position is the first day of winter. But it gets a little tricky when you get to this celestial equator, and I'm not exactly sure what it should be yet, but I know modern science is saying like when it touches like that. But I've got a feeling it's either got to be when it's bisected like this, or when it has totally entered like this. So Enoch again, Enoch said, in this way it rises in the great portal. And you can read this, and maybe we need to do some translational work to see if there's an exact word being used to describe that entry, or kind of where the sun's disk is with respect to the exact celestial equator. But the other, like I said, the other thing that kind of bears logical, I guess is kind of my current understanding. And a confirmation from Enoch too is this verse, where he says, the 4 portions of the year, and through all this data, it's an exact position-based timekeeping system, and so I think the seasons have to be equal because the solar months are equal. Like you have, and they fit like fingers inside a glove, and I've tried to say this in different ways in other videos, but that's why I put these colors out here to try and show, like, this is one solar season, this is one solar month, this is another solar month, this is another solar month, but these 3 solar months are the same duration as the entire solar season. And these 3 solar months are the entire duration of this solar season. This solar month is the same duration as this solar season. They start on the same day. Like the first day of the solar season of spring is also the first day of the solar month. The first solar month. It's the first day of the first of the solar year. It's the first day of the solar season of spring. It's the first day of the first solar month. Like, they are all fitting right on top of each other like fingers in a glove. And so I think I'm going to try and wrap this up, but like that's kind of where I'm sitting at. My current understanding of the months is that they are solar. Again, I don't see any support in the scriptures for that 13th lunar month, and I guess I do value Enoch at the moment. I'm currently don't see a reason, like a lot of things you can confirm. Like I don't see Enoch being wrong when it comes to the luminary section. It's very accurate, and you can test what it says. Like Enoch says the sun's light is 7 times brighter than the sun. You can measure that and confirm, yeah, it's 7 times brighter. I googled it one time and it was like, yeah, oh wow, look at that, the sun's light is 7 times brighter than the moon. So anyway, the last point I want to mention is, again, like so these colors of the seasons right here, like, you know it's the season of summer when the sun is progressing down here. It's summer, 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 and then right around here I think it switches to fall. But by the time it's out here, or in here somewhere, you know, it's definitely fall when it's down in here. Like, there's no question about it. It's the season of fall. So I want to leave you with one last thought. If you are, and I guess, yeah, I wanted to talk about the intercalary months, well, not intercalary months, but I wanted to talk about the intercalation, these intercalation methods that are out there that people are doing. And I just want to exhort you to check your notes and see if, in your understanding, your calendar was supposed to be based off of anything solar. Like, I know a lot of you who are into, like, the Dead Sea Scroll calendars probably at some point have come across Rachel Elior. And, like, she, in her unpacking of the Dead Sea Scroll data, you know, I watched her videos too, and I remember her saying, you know, this is a solar calendar, and these are, you know, it's a solar year, and it's solar seasons, and it's solar month. And so, what I would like to encourage you to do is to check your notes and see if that's the case. If your understanding is that the months are not solar based, but they're actually like these independent number cycle things that just kind of float and are free to run without a luminary witness, I would encourage you to check out, you know, to return to Genesis 1:14 and realize, you know, read that. And I don't think we will know anything about time without a witness from the Creator's heavenly luminaries. Like, I think Genesis 1:14 said, at least, you know, for the concept of a year, but, you know, also the word seasons is translated moed, so it, you know, any time increment that you're using to figure out when the Creator's appointed times is, like, I think we need to make sure that the luminaries are being the clock that help us determine that, and not these independent number cycles that just kind of float without a luminary witness. Because you have luminary witnesses and you have signs. You can measure and see when the sun is hitting these extreme positions, and you can confirm from the signs that the seasons are transitioning, and you can even confirm that the months are transitioning if you kind of collect a whole bunch of data over the course of a year. But I just wanted to say, again, leave you with one more thought. If you're in this boat, where your understanding is that the calendar, maybe you thought the months were supposed to be solar months, but what ends up happening is, like I said, the Enoch is position based. It is based exactly and precisely on the exact position of the sun in the portals. And in Enoch 82, it confirms that. Like, blessed are the righteous, blessed are those who walk in the righteousness and not in the reckoning of all the days in which the sun traverses the heavening, entering into and departing from the portals. So the point I want to leave you with is, if you thought the solar, the months were solar months, like 30-day solar months, like if you jumped into that boat and you woke up to the realization that maybe it wasn't a lunar month, and so you were like, oh, it's a solar month. But then maybe you pedaled right into all this Dead Sea Scroll calendar stuff, and maybe you still thought it was a solar month. But I'm telling you, I'm concerned, especially with all the different intercalation methods that people have. People have departed from solar months, and they have departed from Genesis 1:14 and are keeping, like, calendar months, number cycle months, timekeeping with no luminary witnesses. Like I started out this video, it's kind of like the Gregorian calendar. It's not really tied exactly to any luminary witnesses. It's just the months are kind of floating without witnesses, and That's kind of what it is. But so the thought I want to leave you with is think about the Day of Trumpets. Like Leviticus 23 tells us that the Day of Trumpets was supposed to be the first day of the 7th month. And if your understanding is that the Creator's calendar is based upon solar months, then that works out perfectly, because there are 3 months in each solar season. So there are 3 months in spring, and there are 3 months in summer. And so when you add 3 and 3, guess what the next month is? It's the 7th month. So the first day of the 7th solar month is the first day of the, it is the first day of the 7th solar month. It is also the first day of the season of fall or autumn, and it is also the first day of the second half of the year. And so I've run into some truth seekers lately who, I asked, when do you think, first I asked, what would you call these holy days that are approaching? Would you call them, and this truth seeker rattled off a few things, but eventually said, the fall feasts. And I don't know how much of that is tradition, but the word I want you to zero in on is fall. And fall isn't tied to a calendar that circulates. Fall is the seasons are a solar phenomenon, and they happen based upon the exact position of the sun in the heavens. Like, we can't say spring is going to start a few days before the spring equinox because we want to intercalate a day this way or that way. Like, spring is going to happen right on cue, no matter what any man says. Same with summer, same with winter, same with fall. And so the thing is, I don't know why they call them the fall holy days, but it seems like quite a very overwhelmingly popular tradition to do so. But I would encourage people to get to the bottom of why that is. Like, maybe that's not necessarily true, or something we need to even think about. But if you're familiar with that concept, then I'd like to leave you with this thought. Is your Day of Trumpets, which is supposed to be a fall feast, is it going to be in the season of fall, or is it going to be in the season of summer? Because if you intercalated, like this truth seeker I've been talking to lately, he intercalated the 1 week ahead or behind because they wanted to start the calendar on a specific day of the week rather than when the solar sign, the Creator's timepiece confirms the transition of the season and the division of the solar months and solar seasons and solar years. But, if your understanding was, if you did that, the boat he's in now is, I think, his understanding is that the Day of Trumpets is going to be like on the 16th of this upcoming week, I think, either the 16th or the 17th. But the thing is, like, when you Google it, you'll see that Google isn't even saying that the fall equinox is going to happen until like the 22nd. So according to Google, this feast, or this Day of Trumpets, is going to be happening in the season of summer. Likewise, I have collected, I've been collecting data, and, I guess I did want to show you that. Let's see if I can pull that up. When is the fall equinox? See, so it's saying the 22nd. Whatever, that's Google. They could be off a little bit. But, I've been keeping track of data, and I'm going to be measuring the fall equinox this year and trying to collect everyone else's data who's going to be making an effort at doing that. But, according to my data, if it works out right, it's looking like the fall equinox won't happen until at least possibly the 18th, the 19th, or maybe the 20th. And again, Google is saying it's going to be the 22nd. All that said, like I said, this guy was thinking that his Day of Trumpets was going to be here or here on the 16th or the 17th, and this is still the season of summer. Like, I maybe I really doubt that that we're going to see the sign for the seasonal transition prior to the 18th. But you never know. So I mean, depending on which way you intercalated, you might find yourself in the same boat. And so again, maybe people calling these feasts are as like the fall feast or the fall holy days is just tradition, but it's something to think about. And I mean, there is a beautiful, simple, amazing timekeeping system, I think, in the solar months and the solar years and the solar seasons. And we know, you're going to be able to tell, where the sun is with proximity to the celestial equator, or the straight line method. You can measure to see when this seasonal transition is going to occur, and then see, is your, are the fall holy days going to truly be in the fall, or are they going to be in the season of summer? So that's that's kind of the difference you get with these calendar months as opposed to solar months. And I think kind of people may have just kind of lost grip of reality a little bit when they start reading all of the calendar data inside of the Dead Sea Scrolls. But I plead with you to return to Genesis 1:14 and realize, the Creator said the year was the time concept of a year was to be dictated by the heavenly luminaries, and then he also said the seasons, and I believe the word there is moed again. And so, like, your year, is your day of trumpets in the summer or the fall. Likewise, is the first day of your year, is it in winter, or is it in spring? Like, it makes, it's the same kind of thing. Like, if you intercalated this line of the celestial equator when the sun is bisected, because again, that kind of makes logical sense with the seasons being equal. That's what Enoch describes, and so it just makes sense that the transition happens when the sun is bisected. But I'm definitely open if anyone has any thoughts on that. But if you intercalated and you wanted to start the year on a specific day of the week, then the sun might have been like a little, I can't move it now. How about that? The sun might have been like down, it might have not yet been to the celestial equator, it might have been like down here, and you decided to start the year, the calendar year, on a day prior to the actual sign or the seasonal transition. So what that amounts to is the first day of your year is going to be in winter. Like, think about that. Like, that the first day of the year is supposed to be in spring. Like, and that's actually jumping out at me now, because I thought, I'm going to have to think about that, but I thought there were verses that said in the month of Abib or something, and it was supposed to be spring. Maybe somebody jump in there and tell me. But I mean, that's a big point, because and I've heard some of the leaders of some of these calendar groups, and I won't say their names for now. It's a shame that I can't say their names, because it's that's just the, unfortunately, there are some, not this particular gentleman, but other gentlemen that even in these Torah communities can be wolves in sheep's clothing, unfortunately. But but I had a discussion with one of these calendar guys, and like, he admitted, he said, he thought the seasons began when his calendar began. Okay, I decided to intercalate this way or whatever, so the first day of my year is the first day of spring. Or like, the Dead Sea Scrolls talk about the seasonal transitions and the head of summer, and like the head of these seasons, these days of remembrance. I have videos on my YouTube channel about the days of remembrance. But it's not, you might find your first day of the year is in the previous winter, or you might find that your day of trumpets is in the previous summer. Like, and so it's kind of a big deal, and it seems to work out very, very nicely with solar months, and it is in perfect harmony, as I can see, with Enoch, and it is in perfect harmony with Genesis 1:14. and you know whether it's in perfect harmony with what you read in the Dead Sea Scroll calendar data is something I am currently under investigation, and I feel very ashamed that I haven't been able to put out the video series I have been working on, but it is coming soon. It's like, you know, right out in front on my radar, but I've just been going through a lot in life lately, very, very busy, and yeah, I just have not had the opportunity to finish that one, but I am diligently and thoroughly testing the Dead Sea Scrolls and the calendar data contained therein, and I'm really concerned that some testing of the Dead Sea Scrolls and that data has been skipped. I think I'm a little concerned that people just kind of embraced all that data with open arms, and they forgot to kind of look at all of that information that is, you know, that has been put together by the Qumran community. And you know, I am very concerned about the leaven I see in these scrolls, and you know, a little leaven leavens the whole lump. And so, I mean, it is a series that I am getting ready to come out with. So stay tuned for that. But like I said, even if you are in those groups, like I think probably a lot of you maybe got in there some kind of introduction or familiarity with Rachel Elior, and I'm pretty sure there was kind of a consensus that was supposed to be some kind of a solar calendar, or you know, a solar calendar, which means it has solar months and it has solar years and it has solar months, seasons, whatever I said. But based on the different intercalation methods that people are doing, it just ends up being like a floating calendar. You know, free of the luminary witnesses, and people have gone on to try and say that, you know, measuring, trying to tell time by measuring the positions of the heavenly luminaries is wickedness, and I am very concerned for those kinds of people, and I tried to mention it early on, but I just didn't think it would take off and it would catch the way it did, but it did, and so now I'm kind of in a damage control, and I'm trying to do what I can, but, you know, I think people who call it wickedness, that is a direct contradiction to Genesis 1:14, and it falls into the category of those who would call, you know, a good evil and evil good. Like, this is a good thing. This is what Genesis 1:14 tells us. This is what Enoch tells us, like telling time based on the exact position of the heavenly luminaries, and not, you know, some independent decisions of men. So I say it in love, but I'm coming. I am coming with the diligent, the study, and we're going to break it down, and we're going to find out who this Qumran community was really, and you know, we're gonna figure out which scrolls were in which caves, and we're gonna examine where the leaven was and what was the lump that they were contained in, and it's coming. It's a very deep study, and I mean, I am open-minded. I'm open to the possibility that maybe something is just being lost in translation, and maybe it's possible that it's all going to work out hunky-dory. But from what I'm seeing, there are some leaven, some false doctrines that the Savior specifically taught against, like verbatim. And so I'm concerned about that, and I will be getting into that and breaking into that. But as far as months go, Gregorian months, no. Lunar months, I don't see scriptural support for it. Enoch talks about all of the luminaries having months, but in the end he does seem to kind of zero in on solar months and the position of the sun, and the year is associated with the movements of the sun. Like it divides the year, this thing he calls a year, into 4 portions, and you know, he talks about it traveling through the portals, and that's what he described in very long and meticulous detail here about the sun traveling through these portals. So, more than you probably thought you were going to get out of this video, but I pray that you take these things to heart, and feel free to do any, you know, loving iron sharpening iron in the discussion below this video, and shalom, and may Abba bless as you continually seek out his truths in love with pure